My father left my mom for his secretary, Now, my stepmother is trying to control me and ruin my life, so I kicked her out of my house. My father divorced my mom when he was over 50 because he fell in love with a younger woman. Yes, you heard that right. My dad is now 54, and my mom is 52. 4 years ago, my father got promoted to the director of the company where he had worked for 25 years. Yes, it was a big achievement, and we were all proud of him because he had started at that company as a simple intern 25 years ago. My mom, on the other hand, owns her own advertising firm. Even though her company isn't as big as my father's, she's the boss there. So yes, I come from a well-off family. I'm 26, a successful freelance graphic designer, and I'm about to start my own business. Keep your fingers crossed for me. I owe all of this to my mom because she has been working in this field since the dawn of the digital age, and thanks to her, I was introduced to the world of freelancing early on. I started doing graphic design in my teenage years, and by the time I finished school, I was already earning $1,000 a week. I wouldn't say my parents had an ideal marriage because I hardly ever saw them together in recent years. They were both too busy with their careers and their own lives to pay much attention to each other. But it wasn't always like that. When I was a child, my parents were the best team you could imagine. They understood each other perfectly, especially when it came to work. They were ambitious, cheerful, and very fun people. I had a happy and fulfilling childhood. When I went to college, I noticed they started to drift apart and lead more separate lives. I thought it was a natural process when people get older and focus on themselves. They never fought or said bad things about each other, but later I realized it was something else. My father lost interest in my mom after she started menopause. He said her hormones became unbearable, and as you might have guessed, he found solace in his secretary. After the promotion, my father was assigned a secretary. No, their romance started even earlier, when there were only rumors about his promotion in the office. But after the official appointment, he started taking their relationship seriously. When my mom found out about it, she simply wished him luck and let him go without any fuss. That's why I love her, she's the most elegant and strongest woman I've ever met. But before letting him go, she made sure to take the house we lived in and a significant portion of my dad's savings as alimony. No, she wasn't a gold digger. They built that wealth together, and she couldn't allow some freeloader to live off her hard work. In the end, after the divorce, my father had practically nothing left except for his car and some of his savings, which he generously spent on his new love, the secretary. The divorce went smoothly. My father agreed to all of my mom's terms without any disputes because he knew arguing with her was pointless. She would have destroyed him. Thank God I was already living on my own when all this started. During my college years, I rented a fancy 2-bedroom apartment and lived my life to the fullest. I earned enough from freelancing to pay the rent, so why not? I didn't want to take sides because I love both of my parents. I'm already an adult and understand their points of view. Of course, I was closer to my mom, but I also maintained a good relationship with my dad. I respected him because he was always kind to my mom, supported her, and was happy about her successes. My father and his secretary, or mistress, however you want to call her, started living together in a rented apartment because my mom kicked him out of the house. At my father's company, there was a strict rule against romantic relationships between colleagues. My father wanted to keep their relationship a secret until they figured out what to do next, but his beloved was too excited about winning the jackpot and rushed to brag to her friends at work. Yes, for a single mother working as a secretary, my father was a real jackpot. However, friends at work don't exist. Her best friend told the whole office that she was dating my father, and in the end, they both got fired. Yes, my father lost his director position because of that woman. My mom ended up having the last laugh. A few months ago, I bought myself a luxurious 3-bedroom penthouse. The thing is, last week, my father came to me with a request. He asked for permission to live with me along with Linda, his mistress. She's 29 years old, and my father plans to marry her next month and wants to move in with me now. He's currently unemployed, trying his hand at a new venture, but that takes time. For now, he's living off his savings because both he and Linda are out of work. I told my father that I needed time to think. I moved out to enjoy my freedom, and their moving in with me would disrupt my personal comfort. My father assured me that they wouldn't bother me and that I could live as I pleased. I discussed it with my mom, and she said it was up to me. You see, she's not a vindictive woman. She said I was old enough to make such decisions on my own. I want to help my father, but I don't know what to expect from that woman. I'm just confused. My father has always been caring and loving, and it hurts me to refuse him, especially in a difficult moment. I would be grateful if someone could share their experience in a similar situation. So, I suggest writing your experiences in the comments if you have any, and in general, your opinion if you have one. And we move on to the next update. Update 1. Hello everyone. I'll start from where I left off. After much deliberation and discussion, I agreed to let my father and Linda live with me. My father said they would move in after the wedding. I thought the wedding would be modest since it was the second marriage for both of them, but no, they threw a lavish celebration and then went on a honeymoon. I was curious about where the money for the wedding and the trip came from, but that's none of my business. It's been a couple of months since they moved in with me. As I mentioned, Linda is a single mother of a 5-year-old girl who is a mini version of her mother. She runs around the house causing chaos, and no, she's not the cute little girl you might imagine. She's a spoiled child who demands everything she sees, and if she doesn't get it, she breaks things in the house. My father hasn't started his business yet. He's looking for investors and trying to convince them to invest. As for Linda, she doesn't even go to job interviews. It seems she's content to live off my father. She has guests over almost every day, family, friends, and random people she meets at the supermarket. Essentially, she's one of those women who call themselves the life of the party, but in reality, they just sit on the couch and gossip about everyone. Maybe for some people, that's normal, but for me, it's strange to see her doing nothing all day. I never saw my mom just lounging around the house without doing anything, even on weekends. She worked while everyone else slept. I don't know if my father told Linda about his finances, but judging by her lifestyle, you'd think he has no money problems at all. Either he didn't tell her the whole truth, or he lied to me. The first option seems more likely because I myself saw how the divorce of my parents went and know that most of the property went to my mom. This woman needs to be made aware that my father has no money, and if she wants to live normally, it's time for her to start doing something. However, this is not so important to me right now because I am incredibly happy because I met Alice, 23 years old. She's a vlogger, not yet very popular. I can't reveal her identity, but I literally lost my head over her. I've been a fan of her work for a long time, and recently she hired me to edit her videos. We never met in person, all our conversations were via video calls. It sounds like a classic romantic story, but yes, I fell in love with her while editing her videos. She's amazing in her travel vlogs, but what really caught my attention were her raw, unedited footage. Okay, enough admiration. Let's get to the point. After much deliberation, I finally invited her on a date last month. It wasn't exactly a date, it was more of a work meeting. In person, she was even more beautiful. She immediately realized that I was not indifferent to her and reciprocated my feelings. Since then, we've been seeing each other regularly, and I hope that everything will work out for us. Most of the time, we spend at her place. She lives with her younger teenage sister, 2 dogs, and 3 cats. The house they live in was inherited from their grandfather. Alice's parents divorced long ago and built new families, so she and her sister lived with their grandfather until he passed away 4 years ago. Since then, Alice has become the guardian of her sister. So even if my house was empty, Alice wouldn't move in with me. I just hope that my father will finally get his business off the ground and they will move out. Linda and her daughter don't really bother me, but lately, Linda has started to overstep her boundaries. Twice she has already made remarks about my lifestyle, but I sharply put her in her place. I am not the kind of person who will allow anyone to set rules in my own home. If she tries to overstep her boundaries again, I will quickly put her in her place. Update 2. Hello everyone. Today marks exactly 1 year since my last update. A lot has happened, so get ready. First of all, I got engaged. Yes, last week I got down on one knee and proposed to Alice. To some, this might seem like a hasty decision, but I've been sure of her since the moment we first met. Now, about the situation in my house, everything is bad. Linda is just a terrible woman. I won't completely blame her because I think my father himself misled her about his financial situation and fueled her narcissism. For the first few months, she didn't bother me, although she had guests over all the time, but they didn't really bother me. But over time, Linda started to overstep her boundaries. First, she started commenting that my room was messy and that I needed to do my laundry more often. Since when does she tell me such things? Even my mom never interfered with my personal life, and since childhood, I've been used to living as I please. At first, I just ignored her remarks, but when she started really nagging me, I decided to talk to my father. I told him in private to get his Linda under control. He apologized for her and asked her not to interfere in my life. Of course, Linda didn't like that I complained about her, but at that time, she didn't do anything. A few months passed, and my father went to San Francisco on a business trip to meet with investors. Linda took this opportunity to try to establish her own rules. She started giving me orders to wash the dishes, do the laundry, mow the lawn. Of course, I wasn't going to do anything. I cooked for myself, washed the dishes, and did the laundry when I thought it was necessary. This is my house, and no one will set rules here. My indifference angered her, and one day, Linda just exploded. She started yelling that I was a lazy bum who lived off my father and did nothing. Seriously, this woman is so unaware of the truth. She really thinks I live in my father's house and am a freeloader, when in reality, it's the other way around. The thing is, I work from home, but Linda probably thinks I just sit around on the internet or play games on my laptop. I wanted to tell her everything to her face, but I didn't know exactly what my father had told her. I was afraid that if I revealed the truth to her, it would ruin their relationship. So I decided to leave her in her illusory world until my father returned. I didn't want to bother him when he already had plenty of problems with the investors, as if one Linda wasn't enough, so the rain became my second headache. It was getting worse every day, constantly tearing down the curtains, playing with my equipment, and breaking things, and Linda didn't even try to discipline her. During the month my father was away, Linda was testing my patience every day. She demanded that I clean the house, wash the dishes, etc. Of course, I didn't do anything, but her constant whining was starting to get on my nerves. I stopped going to the living room to avoid crossing paths with her. But she started knocking on my door and demanding that I do her bidding. I ended up under house arrest in my own home. When my father returned, I immediately talked to him about Linda's behavior. I told him that I couldn't live with her anymore, either she got herself together or she should leave. My father apologized again and explained that Linda was pregnant with their third child and that it was the hormones making her so unbearable. It's funny, considering he divorced my mom because of her hormonal state during menopause. I wonder how he will cope with Linda now. I wanted to kick her out immediately, but my father begged me to give him a few months to sort things out. I told him I was planning to marry Alice and that I would need my privacy then. I hadn't yet proposed to her, but I was already thinking about it. My father assured me that in 6 months, his business would start to bring in profits and he would be able to move out. I asked him if he had told Linda that the house belonged to me because she was already acting like she owned the place. He didn't answer and changed the subject. It seems he hadn't told her the truth and wasn't planning to. I don't know what he even sees in this woman. He put everything on the line for her. Now I spend most of my time at Alice's place, so it's become much easier for me, but I just dream of the day when Linda finally leaves my house. Update 3. This Linda is just relentless. I said I had proposed to Alice and planned to get married in a few months. But Linda seems determined to turn my life into hell. Just a month after the engagement, she caused me problems. Usually, Alice doesn't come to my house, but this time I fell ill with a fever. I was so sick that I couldn't even lift my head. Alice knew about the situation in our family, but not the details. For example, she wasn't aware that Linda considered my house her own. I'm not one for gossip, so I avoid empty chatter. Alice stayed with me for a few days to take care of me. Linda took this opportunity to turn her against me. She told Alice that I was a lazy bum who did nothing. Alice knows about my profession and my income, so she stood up for me. Then Linda changed tactics and claimed that it wasn't just about the money, but also that a man should help his wife around the house, and that I, for example, didn't lift a finger. Supposedly, Linda cooks and cleans for me. She said that I had a patriarchal upbringing and that my father never helped her either, even though she was pregnant. Alice is not a gold digger, but for her, it's important that a man helps around the house and doesn't turn her into a free housekeeper. Maybe for men, this sounds like nonsense, but for women, it can be a serious problem. But Linda didn't stop there. She claimed that I had infidelity in my blood, like my father who left my mom for his mistress. Then she even lied that I had already cheated on Alice and brought other women into the house. Alice asked for clarification about which women she was talking about. When Linda described them, Alice said they were just my friends and colleagues, but Linda insisted that she had seen me having fun with them. Complete nonsense. I was too sick to notice the changes in Alice's behavior. The next day, she went home. I recovered after a week and went to see her. She looked uncertain and doubted whether to continue our relationship. When I asked what was wrong, she said we might be rushing things. I immediately understood that it was because of Linda, because Alice is not the kind of person who doubts her decisions. She immediately said yes to my proposal, and it was a conscious decision. I directly asked her if she had talked to Linda. At first, she didn't want to admit it, but when I insisted, she told me everything. I explained to Alice that Linda is a toxic woman living in illusions about my father's financial situation. The problem for Alice wasn't the money, but the fact that she needs a partner, not someone who will take advantage of her care. I realized that the damage had already been done, and the more I tried to convince her, the further she would drift away. I decided to give her time, but I knew I needed to get rid of the poison in my life, and that poison was Linda. I went back home and gave Linda a piece of my mind for everything she had told Alice. She just smirked and said, "I told her the truth." In a rage, I stormed into her room and started throwing her things into the living room. She immediately started yelling at me, threatening to call the police and tell everything to my father. I shouted that I didn't care, she could do whatever she wanted. She yelled that it was her house and that I had no right to throw her out. I laughed in her face and shattered her illusions, saying that the house belonged to me and that my father had begged me to let them live there. I advised her to shut up and start packing. She tried to grab me by the collar, but I broke free and warned her not to dare touch me again. A few minutes later, my father arrived. Apparently, she had called him. As soon as I started throwing her things out, my father grabbed me and tried to calm me down. But I didn't feel sorry for him and told him that he had made a huge mistake getting involved with that slut, Linda. Linda expected my father to yell at me, but he shouted at her to shut up. She demanded that he kick me out. In the end, he had to reveal to her the truth that the house really belonged to me. Linda was shocked and started hurling accusations at my father, calling him a liar. My father took me aside and started begging me to give Linda another chance. I said, "No way. She tried to ruin my life by trying to ruin my relationship, and I won't allow her to stay. I didn't hold back and said, "You can take your slut wherever you want, I won't let her turn my house into a brothel." My father gave in, packed their things, and left. All this time, Linda was cursing me, my father, and even my mother. I had a huge desire to go out and punch her, but I didn't want even more problems. It's been a week since they left. Yes, it was satisfying to put Linda in her place, but my conflict with my father has now completely destroyed our relationship. I know I went overboard with the insults, but I hope my father understands that Alice is more important to me than anything. Linda tried to separate us. The next day, I went to see my mom and told her everything. She laughed until she cried, sipping her wine. She invited Alice to dinner and dispelled her doubts about the patriarchal upbringing in our family. My mom's story convinced Alice because she was telling the truth. Even after the divorce, my father always respected my mom. My mom never imposes her opinion, but she speaks so confidently that it's hard not to believe her. She advised me to give Alice space and not pressure her. I hope everything will work out because she is still wearing my ring on her finger. My mom said that Linda will soon start a new hunt for men when she realizes that my father has no money. Linda really goes from one rich man to another. I don't know what position my father is in now, and I no longer feel sorry for him. He made his choice, and it was the wrong one. Well, now we move on to the next story. In the meantime, write your opinion about this. For me, everything seemed obvious from the beginning that everything would go to hell. Theoretically, of course, everything could have turned out much better, but somehow I didn't believe it from the start. I think my mother herself understood that everything would turn out exactly like this, more or less. But why did she tell her son to decide for himself? I think, of course, not because she didn't understand that everything would end sadly, but simply because she wanted her son to learn a lesson. Not only did he learn a life lesson, but he also didn't spoil the relationship with her, she gave him the opportunity to choose. Because the author really liked that the mother considers him an adult, and yes, that's how parents should behave with their children, especially since the woman was engaged in business, she was well off. Yes, this is her method of upbringing, and it's the right one. This proves it once again. Write in the comments if you agree with me. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Watch our previous video, which you will see here, and good luck.